Action!
Well, that threw me off. Hi, we are out here in the middle of Iowa. Are we in central Iowa?
Southeast.
Southeast Iowa in Fairfield, and I'm sitting here with the amazing Jan from Thimbles for You in her studio to show you what this amazing lady does to make these thimbles. So, welcome.
Thank you. Welcome you too.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming. I always say on my blog that I live in the cornfields. So yes,
yeah.
we are out in the cornfields in Iowa. Fairfield, Iowa is a really small town, about 5,000 regular people and another 5,000 at the college. There's a little community college here. And so I do all my work right here in this 13-foot wide by 40-foot long space that we're sitting in. I do all my own casting and polishing and finishing. I don't have a factory like some people do, where they kind of a warehouse or a storage space where they do their work. I do it at home. And we'll probably do a little bit of filming up at the house, but the formal dining room table, where you'd like to have dinner once in a while, has my inventory spread out.
Oh, I think
spread out.
quilters can relate to that, because usually we just have our sewing stuff all over the dining room table. Like that's where my sewing studio is in my dining room.
Yeah, it got bad recently, worse than normal recently.
So before we get into all how it happens, how did you get started making thimbles and in this silversmithing type stuff?
A lot of people ask me about that. My last daughter was already out of the house and off to college, and I moved to Fairfield, and I had a neighbor. I was working as an organic crop inspector at the time, and so did a lot of gardening and a lot of out on the farm kind of work, and she was one of my guests on one of my little farm tours, and we got to be friends, and I actually took her out for Mother's Day brunch several times. And when she turned 80, she called me and said, "Jan, I really need help. You can learn this." I thought, you've had this cute hobby for so long, you don't understand, that I don't want another hobby. But she talked me into it. She offered me money, and I thought, well, she's nice and she's offering money, so why not? So I started showing up at her house between 7 and 8 every morning. We worked till about noon, and then I go off and do my inspections in the afternoon. And first learned the polishing and finishing, and I'll show you how to do that. And then started learning how to set gems, which is another whole project, and got that. But she had never done any of her own casting. Her design work consisted of soldering little bits together, cutting them the right shape and pounding them out to the right areas, and then sending them off to somebody. And it was in New York State at the time where she was sending things. And so, and she was doing all the really basic things by hand. And it took really long.
Yeah,
so,
I can imagine.
The weeks and months before COVID, I was trying to figure out how to make this go a little quicker.
Yeah.
Because I just needed it to go quicker. Anyway, I did learn enough. I have, over the last 2 years of COVID, I learned enough to kind of do a basic design on mine, and then I've got a couple guys that will kind of help me finish them up for me.
Yeah.
And so the way that they're working now, and again, brand new area of expertise, you do most of your design work on a computer screen with your mouse and your computers, but then you feed that piece into a 3D printer, and you can print it out in what they call casting wax, and it feels like hot glue gun.
Yeah.
So you print it out in casting wax and then bring it down here and pull it together.
Oh wow.
So the casting waxes are very purple, and they don't really stick to the normal wax, so you can see this is why this one's sitting here, they fall off.
Yeah.
And then these are the regular wax ones, and then it's a wax tree.
Right.
So they're all made out of wax first. The waxes then we cover this piece with a stainless steel cylinder, and shrink wrap it, and then we glug in a porcelain-like investment, so everything's covered with white. So you take a knife and run it down the edge, so you don't knock these guys off.
Right.
Because then there's nothing there.
Yeah.
So porcelain goes in there. Takes about 10 minutes for it to kind of dry. You take off the shrink wrap, and then it goes and sits on top of that stainless steel kiln over there. When we get 5 of those done, we weigh them as we're going before the investment, and there's a direct relationship between wax and silver. So then you weigh out exactly the right amount of wax to make exactly that piece. And weigh out the waxes and weigh out the silvers, and then keep them all lined up. And then everything goes into the kiln, and it's overnight in the kiln. It's, again, a computerized ramping up of the temperature overnight until it's about melt temperature for silver in the morning. So the stainless steel is glowing orange, and it's ready. The wax is all burned out. It's called the lost wax process. It's a very ancient process that's been around for a long time. So that's the process. It burns out. We melt the silver that we've pre-measured, drop it into there, sit it on the floor for about 20 minutes. It cools down to about 1,000 degrees, and then we plunge it into a bucket of water, and it just sizzles and pops and cracks and falls apart, and the porcelain kind of all falls off. Yeah. And then you take that nice warm piece of silver, and because they're all have little handles on them, you just cut it right on each of those handles, and then clean them all up. There's an ultrasonic cleaner, and then there's a acid bath in a crock pot that's warm, and then a couple of tumbles and cleans, and then finally you're ready to polish it. And then it goes into this little kiln over here, and that's the hardening kiln. When they first get shocked like that into coldness, their molecules are all a mess.
Right.
And you want them to be nice and straight. That makes it harder. And so these are called dead soft when they're first cast, and then after they've spent the second night in the smaller kiln, then they're hardened silver, and then we do the final polishes and gem setting, and we're done.
Coming up with the new designs, I assume you do the designs yourself?
I do.
Because, I mean, some of them, like I have the Frog Prince one, of course.
Of course.
And he's got, the Frog Prince is on the front, and then, not this one, but this is just a different, is this a swan? This is a swan.
That's the swan.
But on the back it has the castle and everything.
Castle.
And how long does it take you to get those? Those are very intricate designs.
They are. I have a lot of fun.
Yeah, I bet you do.
And that's the other thing. A lot of people come up and kind of try them on backwards for a while and fiddle with them a little bit. And then finally I'm like, well, you pick the chicken. That's a hen and her chicks on the front, but on the back is the rooster and the hen house and the apple tree and all the little chicks running around. There's a story with every thimble, and they're like, oh, wow, didn't see that. So yeah, mine are not boring.
No, definitely
we don't have boring.
Were you always putting gemstones in it, or did that come later?
Tommy did that before.
Okay.
She had one that was a really long one with kind of a princess, pretty little line in the front, and comes down your finger real nice. And that was the one, man, I sold 20 or 30 of those at every show.
Wow.
And so it's like, well, I'm not going to skip the gems.
Yeah.
But my dad is a geologist. He taught earth science in high school, and he was a farmer. But every one of our summer vacations as a family, we're out digging up rocks somewhere. And so amethyst comes from just over the Minnesota border in Canada. There's a bunch of open pit mines. I kind of spent weeks there. Yeah. And so I've learned where all this stuff comes from and where to go find it. South Dakota was always fun. We'd go out there and find all kinds of fossils and petrified wood and that kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah.
So the gems have always been real popular. I knew all the names of them a long time ago. So
I know my birthstone, which is a garnet, and and I can pick out a couple other ones like jade and amethyst and that sort of thing. Yeah. Other than that, I mean, I know what quartz looks like. I've got quartz all over our property. But yeah, then I'm kind of like, well, that one's pretty,
I know. That's not an uncommon problem.
Yeah.
They're looking at it and they're like, wow, that's beautiful. Oh, what is it?
Yeah.
I know. I have a lot of fun with the gems, and the first design works that I did was chatelaines, because there's no sizes. You don't have to fuss with all the sizing ridiculousness. So those were a lot easier. But now that I'm really doing a lot more thimbles, I've got 3 brand new ones that aren't even quite out yet. Last year I did fancy cats.
Yeah.
And this year it's silly dogs.
Oh, of course.
They'll be ready any minute now.
Now I may have
Silly
to get a dog.
dogs. See, I know. And then I've got an iris and dragonfly one that is just a little short for some people, a little tight around the bottom. So I've got a brand new one that's sunflowers. And it's just like Tuscany. It just blossoms all over the whole thing. So it's beautiful sunflowers. And there's one version of that that's going to have a gem in it, and the other version with nothing. But it's got just a little bit wider at the bottom, and that'll be a really nice basic for a lot of people. I spent a lot of time during COVID trying to get those little darn short ones to work for people that have the great big knuckles, because
I was just going to ask you about that, because you have some that are the longer and then you have some of the shorter, and so that's really the difference.
Well, your great big knuckle will make you have to get a short one, because otherwise they just flop around.
Right.
So yeah, the big knuckle. So I've got probably 5 that work with if you got a significant problem there. And then, long and short, a lot of people aren't in love with the short ones unless they've been sewn for a long time, and then they're like, I just need the end. That's all I need. Yeah. So some of the short ones that I did are a little too short, kind of scary. When I got the first batch done of my little Lily of the Valley with a little heart on the front, and I thought, wonder if anybody can fit this. You know, you get them all during COVID when nobody's tried anything on, and so it's just me. So, but it fits great, but it's just really lightweight, and so somebody who doesn't want to feel it and have to haul it around, it's just really lightweight, and it's great for embroidery and needle turn applique, and it's really light stuff.
Yeah, and so for those of you that have never seen Jan or met Jan yet at a show, the thimbles that she has, you get to try them on. So they're actually, you figured out how to get real sizes.
Yes.
So we can size you and get it to fit your finger, which is awesome. So the sizing part, how did that, how difficult was that to come up with?
Well, the lady that I learned from, they, in America, we use American ring sizes, but it's sized by the first time. Most of mine have a kind of a curvy bottom. So it'll fit over your knuckle when you put it on. Most of us have a bulgy, bony part on either side, and so I kind of curve up over that, so you still got more contact with the thimble, so it'll stay on, but you're cut around that big, bony, sticking out part. And so it's American ring sizes, and it's the first time it goes all the way around. So this one has a pretty tall side and a pretty short side, and it's cut up even shorter on the 2 edges. And so the first time it goes all the way around, that's where we measure. And then if you go to a jewelry store and ask them for their jewelry ring sizer, what you want to do is match the base of your nail. Okay. But it's usually your middle finger on your dominant hand, the hand that holds the needle. Right. The thimble goes on behind the needle and chases the needle. So you're going to want to set it right down there and measure it there. And then when I'm totally in the dark, I haven't seen you at all, I'll ask you to also measure the biggest part of that knuckle, so I can see how much problem we're going to have. Are you really going to have a short one, or should I throw in a couple longer ones and let you see how it works? Yeah, because definitely arthritis knuckles definitely tend to. And some people, it's not even painful; it's just a big lump. Yeah. And so they can still sew with it, but not if they can't find a thimble that works. Exactly. Exactly. So you don't only just do thimbles. Chatelaine piece. Yeah. So what all do I look at it as like charms every time I see your booth set up. It's like charm collections for quilters or sewers. So what all do you make and sew? We'll look at those up at the house. Okay. There's a lot. My favorite piece, and I tell everybody this, is the scissors. Yeah. Because when I've got scissors in my hand, then I can't sew. So I have to set them down, and guess what? They're everywhere. Oh yeah. I must have 20 pairs of scissors. So if you've got it around your neck, then you don't need 20 pairs of scissors, and you always have one when you want them. Mm-hmm. And so my favorite one is a big pin cushion at the top, and then the scissors at the bottom. And then a lot of people have a waxer and a needle threader and a needle case and a thimble or two hanging on there too. So there's a lot of different pieces. And when I'm working a show, I like my magnifying glass hanging on there because the sizing numbers on these things are tiny. So get my little magnifier out just to read the sizes and tell somebody what size they're wearing. Very cool. So I think
now we're gonna
Close it down for
stop
now.
here, but then we're gonna show you guys a little bit more around her studio and a little bit more about actually how she does what she does. So.
So when I have to go back and do a repair like this is a piece that had been done and hardened and blacked and everything, and it was on its way out the door, and then I broke off the little edge. So we're backing up. Laying down just a little too much. There we go. See that? Perfect. Hold still. Detergent and steel shot. You can kind of see what it looks like in there. So it has a little edge on the machine. It's kind of loud, sorry. So I dropped the pieces in there. These are the ones I just got done with. These aren't quite clean because we didn't give them 10 minutes, but then they sift back out and it just goes right back in there. Maybe over here. Now the acid's all gone and the flux is all gone and it's fairly clean. And see, I got my two little arches back on my thimble so I can put your gem in. So here's the same one with this little gem.
To find out more about Jan and her fabulous thimbles, scissors, and accessories, be sure to check out her website, thimblesforyou.com. Thank you so much for watching this episode. If you enjoyed the video and would like to see more, hit that subscribe button and notification bell so you don't miss an episode. As always, my friend, happy quilting.